Good evening or afternoon, depending on where you happen to be, and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are broadcasting live from Las Vegas, Nevada, at the law office of Alan Butel in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. Alan is our kind of our free landlord. He lets us use his office for the broadcast, which is really terrific, and will be actually our guest next week for next week's show. The show is about guns, politics related to that, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on KSHP Radio 1400 AM, and that show, now the radio rebroadcast of this YouTube show, is 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. We're gradually getting all the advertising changed, but several websites that have ads they've put on for us and this or that are showing the wrong time. It is Sunday morning from 9 to 10, KSHP Radio, AM. They broadcast, of course, they stream worldwide. And we are here at Fired Up with Bob Irwin on Thursday evening, starting around 5 o'clock. And the show goes up simultaneously to what we're doing. The time change for Sunday morning was caused by our continual preempts from Dodger baseball in our old time slot. And now the station is trying to get hockey games and going on and on. So today's guest is world-renowned firearms instructor Maggie Mordaunt, sitting here to my left, your right. Maggie, a bit of your experience and background, if you would.
Thank you, Bob. Maggie Mordaunt. I'm known in the industry as CCW Maggie. I'm a vetted defense shooting instructor. I'm also on the advisory panel for CCW Safe. I'm the owner of Homeland Personal Protection and do a lot of firearms training locally as well as abroad. Looking forward to, this year has just been, pretty cool. It's actually been pretty cool, and, a lot of new different types of things going on. And so I'm also teaching the defensive, I'm also I'm mumbling now. I'm a certified defensive firearms coach through the ICE training program. So just really excited. A lot of the community has really embraced me. And I want to say one of the first people who really, embraced me in this community as a female firearms instructor was you, Bob. And I really want to say I appreciate you for that. And for,
I appreciate that. And I appreciate your support of this show.
Yes.
And you're shanghaiing your husband to finish your class that you were teaching today.
He's a great instructor, so I think he'll be fine.
Absolutely amazing firearms classes for women that are just terrific. I have several stories I picked in the outline for Maggie that are ladies using guns for self-defense. Just because it seemed the right thing to do. When we go to the show next week with Alan Butel, he's an ex-Marine and an ex-state trooper in Kansas, so I'll pull a lot of Marine stories and state trooper stories out of Kansas for him.
I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
I'm sure he will. He'll say, I don't know, I've been here 20 years. I think the law in Kansas still sits. But yeah. Anyway, if you would like to contact us, you can reach me by text or email, bob@firedupmail.com. We have a brand new sign behind us. It's a little less glary than the previous one. And we are, there's a telephone number there, which is my office. I don't generally pick it up. I'm not there very much, but I'm there when I'm typing and doing research. However, if you leave a message on the phone, I will call you back or send you back the information that you are looking for at 702-257-1060. In case you're listening to the radio version, you couldn't see the sign behind me. Anyway. Any emails for any of our guests or guest attorneys? If you want to send something to Maggie, you can find Maggie easily online at CCW Maggie, but you can send an email also to my address there, and I'll forward it to Maggie for that. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States. Rarely covered by the mainstream media. They seem to like to cover all the bad ones, of course. And there are good shootings and some questionable shootings, and some are just plain wrong. But I try to go through and pick out shootings that have a teaching element. I generally don't put in my stories the person's name and so forth. because I'm not using them for personally whether this guy was right or wrong. He's in the middle of something that he didn't expect to be in, and it's really hard to second guess their decisions. But what it does is gives incidents that our viewers can look at and go, what would I have done? How could I have done this better?
Right.
And we're kind of dedicated here to teaching you how, if you have to use your firearm for self-defense, to stay out of jail, stay out of civil lawsuits. That part's almost impossible. Stay out of losing civil lawsuits,
Right.
and get on with your life without too much mental anguish. Anyway, I do want to add a little disclaimer. We're taping the show in Nevada. Both Maggie and I are Nevada residents. We are looking at cases and explaining how they could have been made better. If you have a real shooting case, you need to get local counsel. Talk to an attorney in your state or your city that does criminal defense or civil suit defense. The rules for engagement are different everywhere you go. We have castle doctrines now in something like 43 states, and they're all different. They're differently worded. They mean different things. Does it only mean in the house? Does it mean on the front porch? Does it include the garage, a detached garage? You know, does it include the barn that's a half a mile away? And all the laws in all those states are bent by their own case decisions that have determined that, and nobody's going to know that except a local criminal defense lawyer. So get somebody in your state. Obviously, the easy way to say what's a good shooting in Nevada would rarely be a good shooting in New York City. That's fairly obvious. So bear that in mind, and we will talk about some cases. I want to mention, first up, we have a couple of sponsors, and I put little cards in the middle of my outline because a couple times I forgot to do the commercial.
There you go.
There's a company called Grant Defense. It's located at Russell and Decatur, and they manufacture AR-15 rifles, and 3 grades of them so far locally. They manufacture some really tricked out Glock 19s and 17s. Their grand opening is June 3rd. I would really suggest that you go by and take a look. They're kind of in a soft opening now. You can go in and look at the guns, I believe. They're next door to the Dewey Animal Shelter, if you know where that is. If you're at the Dewey Animal Shelter, they're directly to the east of the Dewey, or west of the Dewey Animal Shelter. Anyway, you need to go over there and look at the stuff that Grant is making.
Have to check it out.
You have to stop by there and look at those Glock 19. He thins the grips and this and that and the other thing, and makes his own barrels. And I mean, they're just amazing guns.
Right.
You pick it up and it's got the best feeling grip. I mean, he makes really cool AR-15s, and he's really excited.
Right.
When I picked up one of those Glock 19s, I went, wow, I'm a big fan of Glock 19s.
Yeah,
and
I am also.
this one is,
One of my
he
favorites.
thinned it and put this modeling system on it that the grip is soft and it's smaller. Anyway, got to go look. Grant Defense on Decatur and
Russell. Yep.
How do I say that wrong?
I'm gonna go and
You
check
should
it out.
go. I put in, as I said, some ladies self-defense shootings, and just because Maggie's here and that's kind of her specialty, the Des Moines Register reported on the 17th of this month a local woman who shot her ex-boyfriend outside a gas station Tuesday night told police she was shooting in self-defense when the officers arrived. About 11:45 p.m., we're talking just before midnight, the woman called police to report she had shot her ex-boyfriend in the parking lot of a Stop and Rob. This is called Come and Go. It's a
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven type thing. Yeah. At 2110 Guthrie Avenue, if you happen to be in Des Moines. She told the police the ex-boyfriend had tried to run her over with his vehicle, so she fired the gun in self-defense. A police officer later went to the man's house. They don't live together, they're ex-boyfriend girlfriend. Where the guy was found with a gunshot wound to the knee. The officers called paramedics, etc., and the injured man was transported to a local hospital, obviously. The man told police he and his ex-girlfriend had been arguing off and on all day. The argument started over a disagreement about which one of them owned their children's photos. The man said his ex-girlfriend followed him to the come and go, where she shot him. She claimed he had run over her foot with his car, but responding officers found no evidence of injury to her foot at all. Officers did see the woman's hand was bruised and she told police it was because he had roughly pulled the car seat away from her grip and her hand got caught on it. The police also found a bullet hole in the victim's, the guy's car door. Now, neither one of them have been charged in this case as of Wednesday afternoon. This is just after the shooting. The shooting remains under investigation. The first thing we look at, obviously, is who supplied the force to bring the parties together. That's generally the party responsible for the engagement. She went to where he was. She was apparently stalking him. Then, given that fact that she went looking for him and there's a hole in his car door with no visible damages to her foot, what is the responding officer going to think? She's lying.
Right, right. Somebody runs over your foot, you're going to know somebody ran over somebody's foot. It sounds to me like she shot him in the spirit of revenge.
Yeah, exactly. She's clearly the aggressor because she was following him.
Yeah.
And lying to the police about what happened means you're going to jail. And that, of course, is what happened.
Exactly. That's good she went to jail. Sounds to me like she was trying to work the whole Bear Fair side. Well, you know, that shooting was not justified because it seems to me that she did, again, shoot him in the spirit of revenge. You know, how dare you give me the photos, they belong to me, pictures, which is pretty stupid. But yeah, and like you said, looks like she was stalking him.
Couples do argue over stupid things. I've been a victim of that myself once or twice. So.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point of me running this story is never lie to the responding officer.
Yeah.
There's no point. It can't, if you make up a story, it can't help you because it'll just disprove it. If you think you did something wrong, you may say nothing. That's fine. Say you want to talk to a lawyer before you answer questions. That's fine. In this case, the woman, in my opinion, clearly committed a criminal act, and then she bought herself a ticket to jail by lying about what happened, and just never do that. There is no point. The investigators of shootings are thorough. You know, they look at things. The detectives show up. They've been to 150 crime scenes. You've never been to one before in your life. Criminals make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
The truth will set you free. Don't lie. I picture a defense lawyer now trying to convince a jury that she is, you know, a nice person and she's innocent and whatever. She's wrong anyway, but even trying to defend it, this is a kind of case an attorney looks at and goes, we're dead. If she lied about everything, she has no credibility when she testifies. It's over.
Right.
The only thing you own is your integrity. Okay, Here we go back to WDTN TV2 news media. This is on 5/9/17 in Miami Township, Ohio. Miami, Ohio. A 9/11 caller reported seeing a man beating his girlfriend, who in turn started shooting at him. And she apparently hit him in the leg. Shoppers ran for safety on Monday outside the Dayton Mall after police say a woman opened fire on her boyfriend near an RV camper in the Sears parking lot. There's a little note here that was kind of cute, recorded from the dispatch from a witness calling. Dispatch says, 911, what's the address of your emergency? And the caller said, yeah, I'm at the Dayton Mall and there's a man beating a woman. Seconds later, the caller watched as the woman opened fire. Caller said he was hitting her. Oh, she just shot him. Oh my gosh, yes, she's shooting him. You got to get somebody here right away. That's cool. Anyway, according to police, the woman shot at her boyfriend 10 to 15 times. He was hit in the leg. training.
Mm-hmm.
Police say that the couple was from out of state. They'd stopped at this particular location just to get supplies. They're just driving through and got into a beef. The male was taken to the hospital, but investigators say he left his hospital room sometime overnight and left the state.
Wow.
So the investigation will continue to determine if men should be charged with assault and kidnapping. The case will be presented to a grand jury. If an indictment is secured, an arrest warrant will be issued for the guy, and they'll go get him. They think he is returned to Michigan for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
From what we can tell right now, this is the police officer talking about it. From what we can tell right now, we may end up having 2 charges on both of them. Miami Township Police Department Sergeant Paul Newhouse said, there are witnesses who corroborate there was some sort of an assault by the male on the female. Police say the woman is currently in custody and likely to face charges. There was an update to this just before. Now, this happened a few days before. The Miami Township Police held a news conference. They say the shooting has been ruled self-defense and the woman has been released. Lots of witnesses that she was being severely beaten.
Right.
And she came up with a gun from somewhere, and obviously if she's being beat up and there were lots of witnesses to this. There were 15 or 20 911 calls. Everybody saw it. Everybody saw this guy is beating her to a pulp in the parking lot. So she comes up with a gun from somewhere. The problem here is lack of training is the only thing I can look at this as a training issue now.
Right. Histrionics. We don't know what their relationship was. We don't know if, and I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here. We don't know if he was beating her up because she had a gun. I have no idea. And, 10 to 15 times, did she do a critical incident reload in between somewhere? I don't know what kind of gun it is. If it holds 15 rounds, one would say it could be a Glock 19.
That was one of the interesting things. The police report said she fired 10 to 15 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
One would think that'd be pretty obvious from the shell casings.
Right, casings.
It wouldn't be like a guesstimate that's off by 50%.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Well, being physically beaten, she's clearly within bounds of using deadly force as a defense.
Right.
That being said, that any trainer would have told her not to fire without a clear background. Duh.
Right. You're targeting what is beyond.
And I've in my experience, I've got to tell you, it is really tough. It's nearly impossible to consider the background when you're under the immediacy of the attack.
Yeah.
If someone had been injured by her gunfire, this would be a totally different case. She skated, apparently, because nobody was hit.
Right. She got lucky.
Incredibly lucky. And this is I've seen this type of case several times. And I've testified in cases like this several times that it is virtually impossible in real life, even though as trainers, we all yell at everybody, check the background, check the background.
Right.
And you can't in real life. I've said this on the air before, and I'm just going to address it because this happened to me. I've had it happen to students. I've been involved in cases, but actually, long story short, I was out working when I used to be a bailiff. I wore my bailiff pin today. I'm out chasing our warrants down to see if we can find this guy and that guy. And my partner and I see two guys running down the street, and a guy chasing them with a machete, swinging it at the air, running after him. So we thought we should probably look at that. And we pulled around and pulled up behind what turned out to be a truck he was getting into, apparently, to chase them in the truck. Well, when we did that, I had the guy on the right side. I had the guy that was outside the truck with a machete. My partner had the driver. And the guy, I yelled at him, dropped the machete, and he looked at me and pointed at himself and looked behind him to see who I was talking to. That was a clue. Anyway, he began wandering sauntering toward me with the machete in his hand.
Wow.
And I backed up a little bit, and I'm yelling, police, drop the weapon, police, drop the weapon. And I'm getting no response at all. And when I had determined that it was time to shoot him, suddenly he must have been able to read minds. I don't know. But I'm leveled off on him, and he put the machete on the ground and leaned on the truck, and I searching for him and so on. And when I asked him, why were you chasing with that machete? He said, why were you pointing your gun at me? I wasn't chasing you. And it turned out he worked at a local help center for the learning disabled, Opportunity Village here. And that would have been a perfectly good shooting, obviously, and I could have then used my badge for a Frisbee, because that would have been the end of my career when you see bailiff kills retarded guy, film at 11.
Right.
The point of the story in talking about this case of this woman firing her gun, do you know what was behind him? I don't either.
No.
All my training and all my teaching experience, and I am looking at the machete, visualizing it cracking through my head, and I have downtown Las Vegas was behind him.
Right.
I have no idea. It is impossible to look at the background when here comes the guy with a machete, or the husband is beating, or boyfriend is beating you into a pulp.
Right.
This woman needs to be defended. Hopefully, I mean, nothing happened. Nobody got hit. Hopefully, they won't charge her with a crime. They've determined that probably they're not going to. So there could be a civil lawsuit over this, but nobody was hit. So she's extremely lucky. We wish her a speedy recovery. She's in an impossible situation, in my opinion. No matter how much you talk to your students about background.
Right. I mean, I do talk to my students about visual acuity under stress, the changes of the blood flow to the body. These are things that could potentially happen. Not to get too sciencey, but the rods and cones of the eyes, we lose at some point. Sometimes we'll actually develop only a focal sight in front of us, and also of what it is that we are focused on, and that would be the threat. Some people say focus on your front sight when you're shooting. Well, sometimes you don't even see that. And so, you have to. Your vision narrows when you're threatened. And it's the cones of the eyes that are in the front. That causes a lot of distortions. And some people call it tunnel vision. Yeah. Well, it happens. We've had, we've had a number of police shootings over the years where, and a couple of civilian ones, where we looked at, the guy said this guy was driving his car at me and he accelerated. And so I fired at the car, so and so. We're not going to stop a car with a speeding bullet, but it's easy. It's better to get out of the way. Right. But anyway, where they did fire at the windshield and so forth, and the witnesses said the guy didn't accelerate. He was moving at about 20 miles, 10 miles an hour, but he didn't accelerate. And what we've discovered in exactly what you're talking about, when the vision narrows, your brain sees the car and it's this wide. When your vision narrows, now the car fills the whole view because you're seeing a smaller portion, and it appears to your brain like the car jumped forward. It's a distortion. Right. And your brain reads that as, oh my God. And the witnesses say, no, the car was just, it was going toward him, but it was only going like 6 miles an hour. Right. And is anybody lying? No, it's the perception in your brain. It's with the eyes, receiving that information, and you have to process the information. And now we're even looking at the symptoms of bradypsychia and tachypsychia, where things are happening so fast, or things are happening to the point where you kind of develop this temporary amnesia, and you go from one place to the other and you don't know how you got there. And then things are happening so fast. The tachypsychia, it happens so fast, you're like, whoa, what happened? You are generally your own worst witness. When the smoke clears, dummy up. We are lawyer up. Dummy up and lawyer up. You're going to say something stupid. While we're talking about training, if you carry a firearm, you got to learn the rules. And this is the point. Where I used to work at the gun store in East Tropicana, I'm retired now, for those of you who don't know that.
They're still offering concealed carry classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And the advantage to them is, one, it's a low-cost class. I think it's $55 for the recall and $75 for the initial or something like that.
Yep.
But they run it every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. There's a lot of places in town that are probably great instructors, but you call up and you sign up and they say, well, if we get 3 people, we'll run the class. If we don't, you know, They run the class at the gun store Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. You can sign up online, thegunstorelasvegas.com, and you will get decent training, and they'll be there and you'll actually get your class. How about we have a lady with training and practice? And we have a similar situation. This is the Delaware Free Press, May 22nd, a few days ago. Pine Creek, Delaware. A 911 caller said that shots were fired just after 11 p.m. at a home at the 3200 block of Champions Drive. Delaware State Police and Newcastle County Police responded. State police said the woman was found severely battered and her boyfriend had a gunshot wound to his upper torso. The boyfriend, identified as a 43-year-old from Owings Mills, Maryland, was treated at the scene by Newcastle County paramedics. He was taken by ambulance to Christiana Hospital in Stanton, where he was pronounced dead. It turns out the woman was an off-duty Delaware State trooper. She was seriously battered during the domestic altercation with her boyfriend. She was able to recover her duty weapon and then shot him. It turns out Master Corporal Jeffrey Hale said at some point during the altercation, the trooper was able to retrieve her service handgun. She then fired the weapon, striking the boyfriend, I left his name out here, in the upper torso. The trooper, identified only as an 8-year veteran of the force, was treated by paramedics, actually at the same hospital in Stanton. Police say she is in stable condition in the hospital this afternoon. Exactly the same almost as the previous story, but here's a woman who, because of requirements, I assume, it doesn't say anything about her being a gun nut. If the only gun she could get a hold of was a duty weapon,
right.
Probably not a gun person, but she has training. Police academy, do this, do that. They make her practice with her firearm at least once every 6 months. Most departments are every 3 months now.
Wow,
she has to go through a qualification course or a training course or something, prove her skill levels up there. And in most departments, if you flunk the test for your skill level,
right.
They take your gun away or suspend you or something. So the worst point is never try to beat up your girlfriend if she has a gun and the will and the skill to use it. That's fairly obvious. We all wish that every gun owner could reach that level of training. And you can. This woman being a state trooper, she's forced into the training because they require it, because these are the guys that show up. This is why we call the cops, because they're trained and so forth when they get there. They're better at this than most civilians. But you can bring yourself up to that standard. You can take Maggie's class and join the well-armed women. The ladies shooting clubs, and they go out and shoot all the time, and it's great.
Meet once a month.
Guys do it, they go to the trap range here and there and everything. And it's just, you got to do it. We're living in a really dangerous world.
Yes.
It is. If you read the papers, the home invasions and so forth in Las Vegas are just one right after the other.
Right.
Another homeowner shoot somebody a couple days ago here. It's just over and over. And I believe that those situations would drop about 80% if everybody had the training. One, we wouldn't have so much firing when there were other alternatives.
Right.
To call the police, hide where you are, and let the cops do it. And when we are getting shootings with trained people, the bad guys don't come back. They're either wounded and seriously crippled, or they get killed. and they quit their career in crime. And unfortunately, that works.
So one thing to say about that is that consistent training, frequent training, you know, using the defense tool that you're going to use more often will allow you to respond much more efficiently or intuitively, more naturally through frequent and realistic training. So the warrior expert theory is through frequent and realistic training, one can use the power of recognition to respond more efficiently to that dynamic critical incident, which is surprising, chaotic, and threatening, to which in this point we're talking about the use of handguns, to shoot to stop a threat much more efficiently instead of shooting 15 times and, you know, not really making a dent. So, you know,
Hit him in the leg.
training, well, yeah, well, that kind of goes with her training, probably none. You know, there's a difference between being effective and efficient with firearm and, you know, all that practice and training is something that you can hopefully depend on so that you're not improvising or making things up as you go. Potentially you could hurt somebody. And, you know, homicide is something that, you know, you've got on your record. You have to emotionally deal with that for the rest of your life, and how people will perceive you in your family. You know, it can isolate you. And so training at least once a month is highly, you know, recommended, in my opinion, as a defense shooting instructor, and especially using firearms to defend yourselves. You know, it's a big responsibility. And so just because we have the right, and just because you may be working within the confines of the law, and like you said, it was a good shooting. Maybe, you know, she was well within her right to do so. She was justified in the situation. Don't really know what went down, but, you know, luckily in many of the cases we see that, you know, just because someone breaks into your home, or just because somebody hits you, if you can get away from the situation, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money. And hopefully that person is going to get, you know, in trouble anyway.
Yeah, you know, we always encourage people to wait for the police, and if possible, let the police do it.
Right.
They're
the authority, if you will. They're the
authority. They have backup. They have body armor, and they have free lawyers. So, you know, I mean, the taxpayers are covering it.
Right.
I realize, but
our tax dollars do the job.
There was just a thing in the paper this morning, the Bundy case, where
yes,
we've spent over $1 million.
Are they letting them out based on all these new laws that are going into effect? I think that you know, time served, null and void.
I don't want to get near that case, and yeah, Clive Bundy's defense lawyer is a guy who's employed me several times in cases, and I'm not answering the phone when I see his name up there. But it wouldn't have anything to do with what I talk about anyway.
It's involved. It's very involved.
What a mess. This story is kind of sad, and it has to do with not reacting when you have your gun. We're talking about reacting too fast in a couple of cases, reacting just right, but you don't actually have to wait until your head is beat in. You can fire ahead of that.
Right.
When the threat is imminent, then
danger,
deadly force is up here. This story was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was carried all over the place. KRQE News 13, KOB TV 4, and it's all over the place. There was a man who shot a motorcyclist in March, told officers it was self-defense. The incident took place at the Hose-It car wash near Coors and Quail in Albuquerque.
I actually know where that is.
Sounds like a great intersection. Coors and Quail.
Yeah.
Just minutes before the shots rang out, surveillance video from the car wash showed a 59-year-old victim washing his motorcycle. His fiancée waited nearby. A black car pulled up near the front of the stall. The victim's girlfriend told officers another customer was impatient, waiting for him to finish because he wanted to use the stall. I guess the place was full. And the two men argued. Now, in the details, it said the guy was now drying off his motorcycle in the stall,
and
the guy thought he should move it so he could get in first, you know, because the guy could drive it anyway. He didn't think so. Anyway, the two men argued about that. Then the other man, the guy from the black car, shot the motorcyclist 3 times. Responding officers determined the man admitted to the shooting to responding officers. They found a gun, a spare magazine, what appears to be a Swiss Army knife in his pocket. He insisted he shot the motorcyclist in self-defense.
From what?
Several calls flooded 911 in less than 5 minutes. One of the callers said the shooter was the shooter himself. He said, I was standing there over in the car wash, the Hose-It car wash. The guy said he had a gun. He hit me in the face, so I had a gun too. The witness who is trained in first aid ran over and tried to, once he heard the shots, tried to resuscitate the guy, and responding paramedics did the same thing. They took him to the local hospital. Unfortunately, the victim here died. The 59-year-old victim did have a gun, but according to documents released by the police, he never pulled it out. So there were blows thrown. The guy from the car punched the motorcyclist. The motorcyclist guy punched back. Then the guy from the car, the gun came out and he fired 3 shots. There is no evidence in this case that he saw the guy's gun. The guy was a CCW holder. Albuquerque Police is now finished with the investigation. The district attorney's office will determine how to decide if the shooter should face charges or if it was self-defense. Now, I've got to tell you a little bit more. The victim was the father of 3 children and nearly adult children and several grandchildren. Had started riding with Onagers. It's a motorcycle club that supports military veterans. They're mostly all vets. He was a Vietnam veteran. He works with the Department of Veterans Affairs for counseling veterans with post-traumatic stress. He's a counselor for them. His fiance said the shooter pushed the victim. The victim pushed back just before the shots were fired. So do you shoot first? This veteran guy, all his friends are saying that he's the calmest guy in the world. That's why he didn't pull the gun.
Right.
He may have alluded to it during the argument because the guy said he knew he had a gun.
But that's not considered brandishing a firearm.
No, just telling somebody you have a gun, get away from me. The reaction of the guy in the car was to pull his gun and fire 3 shots. There's a lot of give and take in this, and it's really a sad thing. There's some fundraisers up to pay for the fiance is running things to pay for the guy's funeral and help his grandchildren and so forth. It's
a loss.
It's a really sad story. This apparently is a really, really nice guy, and he didn't pull his gun when he was assaulted in the first place.
Right, which he could have. He would have been well within his right to do so.
He could have. The guy's saying he was wrong. He wanted to use the thing, and he shouldn't be drying off his motorcycle. He could have dried off his motorcycle somewhere else.
Right.
We'd all agree. This is 2 adults without the sense to back off. But at what point, when a guy comes and pushes you and you push him back, and then he draws a gun because you pushed him back and he says, I know the guy had a gun. That went for about the first 10 minutes, but when they looked at all the videotape and so forth, no gun.
Right.
He could have said he had a gun, but we don't know that. Nobody heard it.
Right.
And he didn't pull this gun when he obviously should have.
Well, the victim here, apparently with his training and things like that, I mean, he had no problem with hand-to-hand combat. But it seems like the other guy is the one who wussed out and decided to use a gun because he couldn't handle it. And especially when he started the fight as well. So
Yeah, the other guy is
Be
a lot
engaged.
younger. And this guy is 59. Obviously, he's not going to be as agile as the other guy. I think was
Right.
42. I don't
Right.
know if I put his age in here or not.
I mean, that's called combat by agreement. You start it, you're in it.
It is. It seems to me to be kind of a mutual combat thing.
Yeah.
And going to a gun in the middle of a pushing match or a fist fight, when you're the aggressor.
Right.
This guy was already in the booth, and I mean, and then you look at who he is, and it's just.
I mean, there's a lot of charges that are probably going to be brought up here. I mean, the guy was paying to be in the stall, so he paid to be in that spot. So one could say that he was habitating in that spot. He wasn't done with it. This other guy came in and basically encroached on his area, on his territory, and just because he said something and decides he wants to get physical with this guy, and of course he's already now engaging in combat by agreement because now he's starting the fight, so he's the aggressor.
He's the aggressor, and he started the fight.
Yeah.
And what the guy did wrong was he's drawing his motorcycle when it would have been polite to move the motorcycle out of the way.
But you know, we can't really. I mean, sure, it would have been polite had he done that, but the other guy had to respect the fact that the guy was there first. If he's in a hurry, then you know what? Come back tomorrow. If you're in a hurry, come another day or whatever. Just sounds like this guy had nothing better to do than to go look for a fight. You know, I mean, it's not even about the car wash in my head anymore. It's about him making a stupid decision.
This is I hate the media. They made this one look worse for whichever side they were on. I put in here that the guy had a knife. He had a Swiss Army knife. When the police, there's video of the police searching him, and they take he had a Ruger 22 pistol. They took a spare magazine out of his pocket and this Swiss Army knife, and you can clearly see it in the video. It's a Swiss Army knife. And some of the media said he had a knife in his pocket. A Swiss Army knife is not what you bring to a fight. You say he had a knife. My God, the guy had a knife. But
it's a utility tool.
It's like a tool.
It's a camping tool, utility tool. It's a Swiss Army knife.
You know, I just, you know, you had two guys who didn't want to back down, and there they are. Couple things here on National Shooting Sports. Hooray for us. Reported on the 19th, the Social Security Administration has withdrawn a rule and will end the practice of barring certain recipients of Social Security benefits from being able to purchase and own firearms. The move's in compliance to a joint resolution Congress signed into law by President Trump under the Congressional Review Act that nullified the measure. What was going on? Social Security proposed a ban that would have affected about 2.4 million people, denying rights by administrative process because they had someone assist in managing their affairs, known as representative payees, where you have a person on Social Security and have somebody else handle their financial affairs. And this law would have, this ruling by Social Security would have said that if you can't handle your financial affairs, you certainly can't handle a gun. So would have required the names of the people who were getting on Social Security and getting help doing their financial stuff would be added to the national background check as a prohibited person.
Wow. I mean, is that considered judicially declared mentally incompetent?
Well, this was a rule by the Social Security Administration. They just proposed. It wasn't a law passed by Congress.
Right.
And I was so glad to see this go away because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm on Social Security and I have someone else do my taxes. So I'm one of those guys who can't do my own financial affairs, and I'm on Social Security. I could have lost all my guns.
Wow. We should do a gun trust together. You have a lot of guns.
Speaking of gun trusts, I have did I go buy that? No, I didn't. There's an attorney friend of mine named Jerry Creed. He does firearm trusts and Class 3 trusts. He specializes in elder law. He's out in Summerlin. If you have a firearms trust, or more importantly, a Class 3 trust, these are changing rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
It may turn out that silencers become off the list if the bills go where we think they might go.
Right.
And you can buy a silencer, suppressors, the correct name,
Right.
Without the paperwork and the transfer fee. Class 3 firearms trust, there's now shotguns out that look like sawed-off shotguns, short barrels,
Right.
no stock but a hand grip, and they're 26 inches overall, and for some reason ATF has ruled those are not a Class 3 firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Mossberg makes them. Taurus is making one now, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and Remington came out with one.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy them for about $500, and it's just a gun. It's not a Class 3, even though it's a shotgun with a 14-inch barrel. So a lot of those now are no longer going. You're gonna have something that looks like a Class 3 that isn't a Class 3.
Right. Right.
This is all evolving. If you have a Class 3 trust, especially, get a hold of Jerry Creed and make sure that it's current, because the laws are changing at 100 miles an hour. 702-806-7777. He's out in Summerlin. Jerry Creed is his last name, C-R-E-E-D. Good lawyer, specializes in this crap, and I escaped the Social Security. We've got updates. State Senator James Settlemeyer sends out a newsletter, and we've got some gun laws that are, the Democrats are just, we're throwing every gun law possible into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
When the Democrats took control of our state legislature, we're being Californicated, and no other word for it.
Right.
One that's still in the hoop that we're trying to defeat is Senator Spearman has a bill that requires anyone who is subject of an extended protective order, convicted of domestic violence, to surrender their firearms and be placed on a list that you're not allowed to purchase firearms. On the face of it, that seems like a really good thing, but who says the case involved firearms or was a danger or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
You can get an extended protective order simply because you don't show up in court. There is nothing in the bill that says the guy was violent, used firearms, is a danger to others, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a protective order. And we've had these over the years, and obviously I'm not a big fan of domestic violence, but divorce lawyers here particularly tend to throw that in. Yeah, I've known them to actually go to clients and say, did he threaten you?
Mm-hmm.
No. Well, were you afraid he might hit you though? Was he like really grumpy? And you go, well, yeah, I guess he could have. And they throw that in the divorce decree, and the guy loses guns when it had nothing to do with anything that happened. Not everybody who gets a protective order against them is a murderer.
Right.
And what happens here is they go to a judge and say, this guy, might be a danger to himself, and the judge then will determine if he gets the extended protective order and loses his guns.
Mm-hmm.
The judge will always say, yes, he loses his guns. What else could a judge do? If asked, should this possibly destructive person lose all our guns? The judge isn't going to say, no, he can't. If he's ever wrong, he's done. And even if he's right, and every time he does that, the next election is going to be, this is the guy who wants domestic batterers to have guns. It didn't say he had a domestic battery. It said a protective order.
Protective order.
Are convicted of domestic violence. Protective orders are issued one-sided. Now this will be issued one-sided. And I don't want batterers to have firearms, obviously, but there has to be judicial intervention. The police just can't go take the guns.
There should be stipulations to that. I actually have a student who
really poorly written bill.
I have a student whose neighbor filed a restraining order because he cut the limb off that was hanging over into his yard. And my student called me and said, I'm going to get my CCW revoked because I just got a restraining order served to me. And I was like, well, you need to call, your attorney and talk to them about it. And
that's not a domestic, but it says subject of an extended protective order or.
Yeah.
Protective orders are issued for lots of reasons.
Right.
And,
right.
Anyway, AB 18, which has now been signed by the governor, AB 118, it allows persons 18 years of age or older who are in the military or honorably discharged to get a CCW. This is to let disabled veterans get concealed carry permits. It's a great thing. We're all for that. There's going to be some interesting side effects with states that honor our permits, where the guy travels to that state, but now he's in a state where the state law says you got to be 21 to possess a firearm.
Yeah, so, Florida, they have that law in place where it's 18 and up.
Yeah.
And you have to be active military or
it's like disabled veterans.
Yeah, disabled
discharged.
Veterans. Yeah.
If you're discharged and you're only 18, you were injured in the service.
Right. So yeah, definitely Florida has that law as well. So I know Nevada and then Florida.
It's great. These are responsible people. I can just see a little technical issue here.
Well, they could transport though. I know most of the states it's 18 and up to transport and be in possession of. So, there's a difference between transporting and concealed carrying. Just remember, if you're wearing it and nobody can see it, you're concealed carrying it.
And remember, if you're an 18-year-old disabled veteran, don't go to Connecticut.
Don't go to Connecticut.
No matter what this law says.
Right.
Because you're under state law there.
Right.
So we can say it's okay for you to have it, but other states may disagree with that, and you're still going to end up in their court system. You can be right as rain and still end up needing a defense lawyer.
Right.
AB 253 is heading to the governor for signing. It requires Central Repository Records of Criminal History to share mental health adjudications with local law enforcement agencies. It requires when a judge says somebody's crazy, mentally incompetent, that their name be added to the list of people who will go through a background check and fail it. We need that. A lot of these shootings we're seeing are just plain wackos.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really important to have that.
We are within 5 minutes. So there's a whole lot of bills that got killed. A lot of them were good. A lot of them were good bills that got killed. Settlemeyer's bill allowing people to have a firearm in their car in their parking lot of school property died. The bill to add libraries to places you can't carry firearms died. That's good. Senator Ford's bill removes a provision that provides immunity from civil liability in actions involving use of force under certain circumstances. It essentially reversed the Castle Doctrine. It died. Good. There were a couple of bills, one from Gustafson, one from Assembly of Merchants, that would have allowed constitutional carry. So you don't need a permit to get or carry a gun. Those died. Senator Atkinson's bill that allows a person who holds a valid medical marijuana card to still possess a CCW died.
So they can't get a CCW, right?
Right. So you still can't get a CCW.
Yeah, it's federal.
And the problem is, we could have passed that all you want, and then people would think they could carry a gun. Marijuana is still a Schedule I narcotic under federal law. It's just a different cop arrests you, and you end up in federal jail instead of state jail. You don't want to do that.
Right.
So until the federals get marijuana off the Schedule I drug, if they ever do, having a marijuana card means you can't have guns under federal law. The state can say whatever the hell it wants. It ain't going to matter. you just get a longer jail sentence from the feds.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other stuff here that's a lot of technical stuff.
Yeah.
The Nevada Constitution was being amended to add rights to hunt, fish, and trap, and that was basically a bill on trapping to require trappers to check their traps every 24 hours or whatever, and this and that.
Right.
Which most of them do anyway, the responsible ones. I mean, this was.
Yeah, I have a trapper on my staff.
A nice bill, but you know, it's
a needed.
And Assemblyman Titus put a bill in allowing a person who moves to Nevada from another state to continue to use their CCW until it expires. That there's a state law that says once you move here, you need to get a new CCW because you're a Nevada resident.
Right.
And that probably was not a bad idea, but it's complicated in letting people that don't qualify for a Nevada permit to carry here.
Right.
Because they have a permit from there and they actually live here is the issue. So I think that's okay that happened.
Yeah.
Crossroads of the West Gun Show, June 10 and 11. I've got some passes here. If you would like one, send me a text or an email or put a note on my phone, and I will mail you a pass for the Cashman Gun Show. We're trying to be there to work the table. My engineer may not make that. He's going to have some surgery, so I'll be there, part of it anyway. Rocky Mountain Gun Show is in Reno on June 16 and 18. Western Trail's Got a Knife, June 24 and 25 at the Orleans, and so on and so on. We'll be back at Claude Hall's original Las Vegas Gun Show, July 15 and 16 at the Sports Center. We will be there for that one. And next week's guest, as I mentioned, is Alan Butel, our host here for our show. And we are up on our 60 minutes. So if you'd like, you can go punch and broadcast on the machine.
And there you go. All right.
Thanks for coming.
Yes.
We'll be back next week with Alan Butel. Thanks for tuning in. Now I'm going to smile until she goes over and puts end broadcast. Pulls the plug or something.
Stop broadcast. Boom.